Our next subject is security. Let's start off with this video of Cisco's mid-year security report.
Hi, my name is John Stewart. I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Security Officer here at Cisco Systems. I want to talk to you about the launch of the mid-year security report for 2014 and give you a set of highlights that automatically scream out that the amount of information that happens in a 6-month period is something that, frankly, we've got to continue to provide to you as the consumer of it, as well as the kind of feedback we're looking for in order to make sure it's valuable to you. The mid-year security report, if you're not familiar with it, is a build-on of our annual security report. Halfway through the year, in this case, of course, 2014, we're trying to do a checkpoint on what already are starting to show up to be some of the trends. We have hundreds of people inside of Cisco working as a combined team to put these things together, and it includes information that we're drawing from the telemetry engines of across the global grid that we run, the expertise they're drawn from the multiple verticals and multiple expertise domains that these individuals are in, and then certainly in talking to customers. So that's how it's comprised and built in an editorial way in order to get it out. A couple of things that I'd like to highlight of this year's mid-year security report. The first is, and it's very clear, that the Internet of Everything, Internet of Things security is already upon us. We can acknowledge it or we can deny it, but I don't think there's any more denial that this MSR will show you. We're starting to see more and more vendors producing equipment that's connecting, and we're starting to see the exploit vectors show up on that kind of equipment. This is where refrigerators get involved in spam, and this is where IP addresses connected to baby monitors are actually being used for video surveillance. Those kinds of things are here now, and it challenges, frankly, the existing security paradigms. You'll see that in the MSR as well. Correlatively to this, every company now is an IT company. You can be building farming equipment, you're an IT company. You can be producing a beverage, you're an IT company. As a result, though, every company now, frankly, has got to be a security company, or at least security aware, and I would advocate all the way up to the boardroom. The kind of risk area that this is turning into for every single institution will be shown because all the institutions that we've been studying, which constitute a very significant part of the global economy, have some sort of traffic, be it encrypted traffic coming out, be it indicators of compromise of devices within, and this is the kind of information that the MSR shows for the verticals that we think are most likely to be hit, but also that every single company has got to be up in their game to protect themselves. And the last one that you need to take away from all of this in the MSR, we highlight again how caring and upgrading and patching software is the single most important thing when it comes to the areas where we don't do well enough that we could. It just enables the attacking community. And it'll talk, the MSR talks about Java, it talks about patches, it talks about the exploit kits that are being developed. Now, I can't cover all of it in such a short period of time. So the call to you is to read it. The links, the information, and frankly the future of what we will be doing over the next couple of weeks and months on precedents, on experts talking about it, on online blogs, on online webinars, all of which is continuing to try and provide the valuable information that we have and put it into your hands. My ask of you, though, is that you give us the feedback. We need to know if this is an effective format, what's working, what's not, how quickly you need it, in what types of formats. We're seeking to improve it so that you get the right information at the right time in the right format for the right people. That's a couple minutes on what's happening in the first 6 months. Please take a time to review the report, give us the feedback. Thank you for listening, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
In everything and in everything, the best protection is always prevention. And our next speaker is an authority on the threat-based approach for before, during, and after an attack. Here to talk about a new security model for the Internet of Everything world, of course, he is the consulting systems engineer. Let us all welcome Mr. Tim Snow.
So, what was the word? Magandang hapon. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. Just want to make sure I've got my standing place correct. So good afternoon. Hopefully everyone's lunch was enjoyable. I know it was a bit rushed. Thank you for staying for the security session. What we're going to talk about today in the next hour or so is the IOE security model. And we've seen a lot of this in the enterprise, BYOD. Now we're going to link it back to protecting things like infrastructure, electrical grids, etc. So let's get started. Okay. So we're going to have a definition of what is the IOE, what is IoT, how will the IoT affect your business, the ramifications for not doing security properly, and then some of Cisco's solutions. So let's start with a quick definition. The idea of the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything is connecting people, processes, data, and things. All right, there were some examples in the previous video about your refrigerator letting you know you're out of eggs, right, as an example. More importantly, it's not just about connecting these things, it's about increasing our life, right? The benefits to all of us, right? Efficiency, right? Power savings, money savings, and the quality of life. So we know the IoT is here. If we look at the world population, around 2008, 2009, there were more devices connected to the internet than people. So we've reached this inflection point. Cisco's, our IBSG team, is looking at approximately 50 billion devices connected by 2020. This is cars, streetlights, electrical meters, right? Your refrigerator. Right? So it's more than just BYOD. Right? We're seeing more and more devices connecting. And then how do we need to think about how can we apply security policy to these types of devices. So during this, it's actually 1 hour, it's about a 45-minute presentation. We're going to create more data during this session than hundreds of years previously. In fact, we as humans create about, with our smart devices and whatnot, we create about 1 exabyte of data per day. Going back thousands of years, they created about 2 exabytes. So take every library in the world, every country, and all the data that's there, we're creating that per day, and it's growing, right? So we need to think about big data analytics, security policy, and how do we adopt and utilize this information. So if we look at some other trends, or statistics I should say, hourly we're creating about 4,300 hours of YouTube video, right? About 180 days per hour. Right? You can see how many new devices are connecting, 2.8 million apps downloaded from the App Store. All of that's fine, because we have about 340 undecillion IP addresses. If you're like me, you had to go and think about what does that word mean, or maybe you're Googling it right now. That's the IP address range for IPv6. That means 2 to the power of 13 IP addresses for every cell in your body. We have plenty. We can definitely connect your car, your fridge, your mobile devices, etc. Your home security system, assuming we move to IPv6. All right. So with that in mind, we're seeing more innovation in IT and the business side than we ever have seen before. Right? You're experiencing these challenges, right, in your network. Let's go through and take a look. BYOD. Right? How many of you have deployed or started to engage your employees and allow them to bring their own devices into the network? Right? We have a whole cloud and virtualization track in this session, or in this event. Right? So we know these are real. We're seeing new breeds of apps. We're moving from client-server models to client-to-client. Right? Then, of course, an explosion of sensors and devices, new device types connecting to our network, PLCs, etc. And then, of course, the big data analytics. Now, let's take a look at the business side. Right? Growth and innovation. Right? Every company looks to grow, especially if they're publicly listed. New business models. Right? New partnerships, new way of sharing data. Engaging the customer. Right? Being able to provide things like free Wi-Fi or advertisements in the retail space on the mobile devices. Right? Mobile banking, how to get people and engage them and maybe sign them up for new loans and services. Globalization, I think specifically here in the Philippines, we know the whole IT outsourcing, right? This global model of how companies do business, and something we need to think about. And then finally, security and privacy, a big concern. So why the Internet of Things? Why are we even talking about that? Why aren't we having just a security session? There's actually some pretty important benefits to us, right? Efficiency, new economic value, and of course, quality of life. There's a reason why we're doing this, not just the money part that's there. So if we take a look at the connected car, it's more than just having an onboard entertainment system, although that's the first thing we see. Think about car maintenance. Right? If the system, the engine detects that you're running low on oil, or you've got a leak, or maybe your brakes are about to fail, etc. Imagine being able to tell the car dealership or your favorite mechanic that you're going to be coming in later on today, booking an appointment, etc. Right? So we do enjoy some benefits of efficiency, right? Not being stranded on the side of the road, safety, etc. But we can also gather information from these types of devices. On the flip side, think about what could happen if your car was hacked. Right? I'm not talking about somebody changing your radio channel. I'm talking about infecting your car with malware. Right? It could even be, a safety hazard, depending upon what that individual or group wanted to do. All right, the next one, the smart city. So my colleagues are going to be talking about that. They're talking about it in the other sessions as well. Being able to connect the energy grid, right? Turning off and on streetlights, noticing congestion on the road, right? How to divert traffic. Think about emergency services. What if I could change the streetlights as an ambulance is going to the hospital, right? So this is actually a change in mindset for all of us, right? Being able to be connected to our infrastructure. All right, so I want to give you some examples about what our customers are doing. So here's a few. The first one is the Incheon Bridge in Korea. So they've got video cameras, sensors, sway motion detectors. The whole bridge is connected. Right? So it's not just traffic congestion. They can monitor if there's a big storm coming. They can detect cracks in the cement if something's going to happen. Okay? Another example, K-Power, electrical grid. So they can monitor the energy infrastructure. They can detect a fault or a fault that's about to happen even before it happens. Another example, manufacturing. Right? You could think about mining. There's so many examples of this, right? Connecting your tractors, being able to know, where your devices are in the network, or if you're in shipping, being able to track cargo containers. Right? The possibilities are endless. Then the last case, the education sector. So think about, I'm sure we've all seen the news about some of the bad things that can happen in this space. On the other side, imagine if we were able to detect something happening at a university, high school, etc., being able to engage law enforcement, being able to lock doors, lock windows, contain the problem, right, to prevent the spread. And of course, we have video and whatnot, right? So the law enforcement could actually take a look at what's happening in the school, or apartment building, et cetera, parking garages and whatnot. So when we look at technology, we're seeing what we call the perfect storm, right? We have software as a service, new applications moving into the cloud, right? We have virtualization. We have social and consumerization. I know the Philippines is a big user of Facebook and Twitter, very social country. And then on the enterprise side, we're also seeing mobility and BYOD. All of these things coming together are creating a big security problem. Right? If you've read the news, if you're security professionals, you know that every day, every week, we're hearing about new attacks and they're getting bigger. Right? So if you take a look at some of these brand names, I won't go through the entire list, but it spreads from retail, banking, right? Every industry is vulnerable and every industry is basically up on my slide. So if you take a look at these, irrespective of their line of business, what did all of these companies have in common? Right? All of them were very smart. All of them had security engineers, right? And all of them were compromised. So not one of us in this room, no matter what your business is, you're not safe. You need to be thinking about the things, thinking ahead, trying to plan, playing this what-if scenario in your mind. What would happen if my core banking system was attacked, my customer credit card database was lost. Somebody hacked into my electrical grid, right? Insert the what if depending upon your business line. So we're seeing an increased attack surface, right? More devices connected into our environment. We're seeing threat diversity, more ways for malware to get into our network, not just email, right? These BYOD devices can be bringing it beyond my perimeter firewall, right? They're already in our infrastructure, right? So that firewall, it's not useless, it's still important, but its task is limited. We're seeing higher impact and higher risk. Physical risk, right? And the monetary impact of getting, having your brand, your reputation in the news, okay? So I'll just skip through this in the interest of time. So this trend is going to continue. It is going to get worse. The main reason, cybercrime is lucrative. There is money in it, right? So there's nation states, and there's the money side, right? So these entrepreneurs, if you do a quick Google search for malware for hire, right? Just one of my favorite searches, you can actually find kind of like the eBay of malware retail, where you can go in, click some check boxes, get a customized malware specifically for your, based on your request, right? How do you want it? Do you want it delivered by email, right? Do you want something that's going to execute from a USB, right? Do you want Java, you want et cetera? You can pick and choose what you want. The interesting thing, and pay for it online with your own personal credit card, which is kind of scary. They also have technical support. You can open up a case if your malware doesn't do what you want it to, right? So this whole ecosystem is there. Imagine that, right? Maybe I want to do a man-in-the-middle browser attack to target specific banks, but only one specific bank, right? I can go in, feed all these options, and then within a week, I have my customized malware. If it doesn't do what I'm supposed to do, or what it's supposed to do, I can open up a case and they'll address my concern. Interesting thing is you can also buy support contracts. You have 4-hour, 1 day, 2 and 3 days, right? Pretty interesting stuff. In the case of IoT and IoE, we have specific problems for these different device types. Number one, no encryption, typically. Built on an implicit trust model, and no authentication. So imagine, think Stuxnet. Everyone heard what Stuxnet is? Right? A piece of malware that targeted Centrum devices, which are the ones responsible for spinning a centrifuge. So imagine if I can tell that device, keep spinning and spinning and spinning, overheat a nuclear reactor, what happens? Very bad things happen, right? This is not just ATM skimming or that sort of thing, right? We're talking people's lives. So we have a lot of things to worry about. So how would you prioritize an attack in your network, right? What's your core asset that you're trying to protect? Anyone recognize this particular image? Yep. So if I were to ask you this question, what would you do differently if you knew that you were going to be compromised? If I told you in a month, your name or your company's name is going to be in the newspaper because you got infiltrated or compromised, and you left this session, what would you be thinking differently? Would you think, uh-oh, I better make sure I have 24-hour monitoring. I better make sure I have these processes in place. I need to get my staff into training. I need to go to training, right? Think about what would you do. And if you can imagine the worst case scenario, you can start to think about how would you protect yourself. Unplugging from the internet? Maybe. Doesn't really help if they're already on your network, right? Or if somebody, an internal employee, is being malicious, okay? So we need to think about compliance and whatnot. So let's talk a little bit now about security capabilities. Right? Cisco's made some announcements in the last couple weeks, which we're gonna refresh a little bit today. So, new model for security: how we can look at the products that we purchase and our IT spend, and hopefully get more out of those devices. We're going to talk about integration. We've got some interesting product launches that we made, and then finally, intelligence into the infrastructure. All within about 20 minutes. Let's give it a try. So this new model. When we typically purchase a piece of equipment, it has a very specific job, okay? If we look at an attack, or this attack continuum, we have 3 phases: before an attack, during an attack, and after an attack, okay? Firewalling technology, typically a before, right? It has a very specific job, allow or deny this type of traffic from this specific user. Fair enough, pretty easy. What happens if something gets through? What if I permit port 80 to this particular website, and inside that flow, there was a threat? What would I do? So now the attack, we're in the during phase. The firewall already let it through, right? It's already going through. So the firewall has basically been bypassed effectively. So if we can detect a threat inside or during the attack continuum and be able to maybe change my security policy, say, I've detected this, start blocking that traffic, right? And then after the fact, after an attack happened, we have things like event management, forensic analysis, maybe even outside consulting firms. So when we think about this, when you purchase your next product, security product specifically, start thinking about where does it fit within this attack continuum? Can it communicate with any other devices on my network to make my security policy more firm? So here's some examples, right? We have application control and before, firewall, patch management, etc. And then during is typically where we talk about next generation IPS, email scanning, phishing prevention, etc. And then after, I already mentioned the forensic analysis, SIM tools, etc. Across the bottom of all of this, visibility. We need to understand what devices are on our network, right? Who is using them, what's their state of compliance, etc. So every single device within our network, our switches, our routers, our firewalls, our sandboxes, etc., should be able to provide visibility information, okay? And then the last one, leveraging the cloud for global protection. If we can provide visibility in the infrastructure, we can actually look at, if you see this area where it's entitled the crisis region, which also is, I typically call it the boss calling you at 2 a.m. region. Something's going bad, right? Quite often, we don't know an attack has already happened until it's into that crisis region, right? Hopefully you don't know that you were under attack when your name is in the newspaper, right? That would be really bad. That's kind of after the crisis, right? So what we need to do, excuse me, we need to look at this insight region, potentially even detecting an attack before we get to the crisis zone. So I'm going to introduce some solutions from Cisco that will help you do that. So if we look at technologies like next generation firewall, everyone heard this term before? NGFW, right? Very good marketing term. What's the problem? You can see it on the slide here. They focus on things like user identity and application control, block Skype, detect port hopping. Fine, that's great. Before technology, what happens? I gave an example earlier. If a threat goes through, right? Many of these products, right? If you use them just as a traditional next generation firewall, they don't focus on the threat. They're missing the threat. Right? And I'll give you some examples. Look at Heartbleed, shell shock. Everyone familiar with these terms? All right. Next generation IPS devices, like SourceFire, as an example, already protects against these. The firewall, completely blind. Completely blind. They just see, hey, port 80, SQL traffic, etc., keep going through. They don't look and say, all right, shell shock, bash vulnerability. They don't look for certain strings and say, hey, you know, your device is compromised, or somebody is trying to compromise that device. But an IPS does, right? So very different. What we introduced on the 16th of last month was the industry's first threat-based next-generation firewall. So we have all the traditional next-generation firewall capabilities, plus we're adding next-generation IPS. In product terms, that is Cisco ASA plus SourceFire in one box. So you have the best of both worlds. right? You've got all your Skype blocking, your port hopping, your user identity stuff, and now I can also detect the threat. This is across our entire product line. The high-end models, which you can see here, is the 2-slot 2RU 5585 series. The SourceFire is a card that you add in for performance reasons. This is typically the data center device, okay? Or even high-end internet block. For the smaller ASAs, the X series, we run SourceFire as a virtual machine or as a container on the ASA. So while you do all your IPsec VPN, your SSL VPN, your content inspection, then we can send it into SourceFire for further threat prevention or protection. So here's an example. This is the latest NSS report. If you haven't seen this, you can do a quick Google search and you'll find this. It's a little bit hard to see, but Cisco is at the top with 99.2% protection based on default policy. Okay? To the right is the cost, and to the top is the level of protection. I won't highlight anyone specific. Actually, you can't see it anyways. But go and download the NSS report, and you will be shocked at what you see. You will see next generation firewalls, 50% protection. Okay? And you'll find the free report. And here's some of the numbers. Right, I won't go through, and I won't name names, but you could take a look and you can see some of the protection levels. It's completely shocking. All right. So what we're doing, we're adding technology on an existing platform, so you have investment protection. If we look at next generation firewall, we have classic stateful firewalling. We have NAT, right? We have generation 1 IPS, application visibility, right? URL filtering, leveraging reputation from the cloud, user identity information, okay? All of those features are considered a next generation firewall, right? You'll notice the generation 1 IPS. This is why vendors are scoring quite low on NSS, right? They just don't have the detection capabilities. So what we've added by bringing in SourceFire, we have a built-in SIM tool for event correlation, right? We can look at things like indicators of compromise. What is the device doing on the network? Is it acting abnormally? Right? We can detect that. Second, we're adding next generation IPS, which if you're familiar with this term or with this technology, we're talking about Snort, open source IPS, and we've also now announced open source application ID, which means you no longer have to listen to a vendor spout off about, I have 2,000 signatures, I have 3,000. It won't matter. We just open source the whole thing. So universities can now participate. Customers can create their own. They can send us sniffer captures, and if you have your own custom app, we'll turn around a signature to be able to recognize that application in your environment. Think PLCs, Yokogawa, Modbus, SCADA networks, all of that. You don't have to wait for the vendor, it's out in the public domain. So with SourceFire, how they became #1 in the next generation IPS, right, using this open source technology, specifically Snort, and now we can use it in the open source app ID. We also have the capability to go back and say, all right, maybe something happened, maybe we let something through. We can go back and say, all right, the system is automatically going to change the policy. Or another example is, let's say an attack was going into the network. You had a Apache server running on Linux, and somebody tried to use a Windows type exploit. Do I want an alarm on that? No. In fact, a quick example, I was at a customer POC last week. Some of the vendors that you saw on the previous slide were also there in the POC. Right? The account manager was very concerned. Said, hey, Joe, you take it easy, we'll be okay. So the night I went back to the hotel, the account manager and our PSS guy called me and said, hey Tim, we're not seeing any alarms. The other box, the other vendor, their screen is full with events. We're missing it. We're not capturing things. Like, take it easy. Hang on, I'll go back. I went back to the location. They had no priority 1 events. They had a bunch of the needle in the haystack kind of thing. right? Informational messages only, nothing that the security team had to act on. Why? Think the Windows attack against a Linux server. Why do I want to generate an alarm just because I saw a particular packet? My system's not vulnerable. Either I'm patched or it's not the right OS, etc. Okay? So I just heard news today that we're going to be winning that deal because we were able to show the customer, look, it's not just a matter of number of alarms and events you get, it's about protection, right? So moving right along, beyond next generation firewall, beyond next generation IPS, we also have cloud services. Think big data, right? URL information database, reputation information, in the cloud sandboxing. You don't need to buy another product to do sandboxing, right? So picture your firewall with IPS services, packets going through there, a file, somebody's downloaded a zip file. I can create a hash of that file and get information from the cloud. If the cloud doesn't know what that file is, we can send the file to the cloud for processing. Run it in a sandbox on demand. Which means for you, you don't need to worry about VLANs and routing and more boxes in your DMZ. Okay? We can supply all of these features in one product. So that was our announcement on the 16th of last month. A single integrated threat defense system, the ASA plus firepower services, or SourceFire. So in the interest of time, let's move on to the last area. So network intelligence. This is beyond just things like NetFlow. Okay? That's just one. Oops. Let me go back here. All right. So Cisco's cloud, right, is a combination of multiple device types. It is IronPort email security appliances. It is IronPort web security appliances, right? ESA, WSA. It is Cisco ASA. It is SourceFire NGIPS. It is cloud web security, right? It is Meraki. We have more devices deployed than any other vendor, right? We see more data than any other vendor out there. In fact, here's some data points. About 100 terabytes of data per day that we're processing. 1.6 million deployed Cisco ASAs. Oops. 13 billion web requests per day that we see through cloud web security. And the list goes on and on. For the sandboxing side, we process about 120,000 sandbox samples per day in the cloud. Again, you don't need a dedicated appliance on site. If you remember the slide where I was talking about systems being compromised, take Target as an example. They had a sandbox. In fact, they had the quote-unquote market-leading sandbox, and they still made it on my slide. Why? That single point-in-time protection, plus the processes, training, etc., just wasn't there. So they invested, and they were still compromised. So we've got very broad visibility. We have a global footprint, meaning if we see an attack in the West, right, everyone here in the Philippines can be protected even though it's nighttime, right, based on our cloud analysis. We provide defense in depth, meaning we can do things like advanced malware protection on our web proxies, on our email security appliances, on the ASA. All right. So with all this information feeding into the cloud, we can be very quick to react to any global outbreak. For example, if a new signature has to be created quickly, right? Your devices can be armed while an attack is happening, or possibly while you sleep, right? So in the cloud sandboxing, signature updates, right? We have third-party feeds, right? Global event tracking, honeypots, sandboxes, etc. So we can take all this information and arm your local devices. So you can choose to participate or receive only. It's just a checkbox. All right, so now that was the global or cloud intelligence. Let's talk a little bit now about local intelligence. The first one, SIM integration. Right? Think of the top SIM vendor out there, probably Splunk is the number one recognized SIM intelligence system. So Splunk has something called the Cisco Security Suite They can take information from every single one of our security products, correlate events, and give you a single screen to look at email security, web security, firewalls, IPS, identity services, etc., in one screen, which you can see here. Okay? The second one, cyber threat defense. So Cisco has a solution. We collect things like NetFlow and telemetry information, and we can look to see, do I have any flows going to this country? Why do I have an FTP process starting at 2 a.m. sending 4 gigs of data to insert whatever country? Right? That could be a threat. Or data exfiltration. Right? What if I have malware on my network and I can see different traffic patterns going from branch to branch? Can I tell you what systems are infected? Yes. Could I look at geolocation information? All right. I have one a stock exchange customer that just last week detected attacks from Latin American countries, the south of the US. All right. They're a stock exchange. They don't have any customers there at all. Unless it's maybe 1 or 2 people traveling on vacation that wanted to check something, right? But they were seeing millions of requests per second, right? Basically a DDoS. So what did they do in their policy? Block those countries. Block Bolivia, block Cuba, etc. Right? Very simple to do. The IPS detected it, gave an alert, gave a recommendation, and they said, apply recommendation, because it was outside of standard policy within 5 minutes. Right? All right. Oops. And the last one, identity services. Being able to authenticate, this is the traditional NAC area, being able to identify who and what's coming into my network, and being able to take that information and use it in my firewall, use it in my IPS. Say, Tim Snow's tablet at branch number 5 should or should not access the core banking system, as an example. But if it's a corporate device, corporate laptop with a certificate, maybe. So now I can take information from the network and use it in my security policy. So this is 3 examples of local intelligence. And finally, about the middle of next month, we'll release the next version of the ISE. And what we've built in is something called XGrid. And XGrid is a way for us to share information between security devices. And yes, we're going to be open sourcing this as well, right? Making it standards based. So if we look at the security problem, right? How many people have MDM products or have purchased an MDM or a sandbox or a firewall or an IPS? What's the problem? None of them talk together, right? Usually. Or sometimes you may get one vendor that partners with another vendor via API. That's great if you have both of those products. What happens if you change one of the products? The API is broken, right? Or one of the vendors doesn't have it. So what we end up with is we have all these disparate systems not working together. My sandbox has threat information. My firewall has threat information. My MDM has compliance information, but they don't communicate, right? So what we end up with, right, is this massive mess of APIs, right, written proprietary between vendor and vendor. So what we've done at Cisco is we've created this language where ICE is in the middle, and we can take information from any vendor's firewall, IPS, identity systems, NAC, right? And take all that information, and we can share certain pieces of it depending upon how you define in your policy. If I want MDM information inside my firewall, I can do that. I can now use that in the policy. Again, right, standards based. So if we think of some examples here, keep going. So if my SIM tool can detect and remediate cyber threats, or I can take MDM policy and use that in other devices. I can do proper segmentation of my IoT and IoE environment. Also helps with forensics. We have partners that do single sign-on. Ping identity is one. So now I have identity information throughout my network. Right? So why Cisco security for the Internet of Things? We are the leader in 6 different Gartner Magic Quadrants. 6 of them. Right? Not a single point product. I've gave some examples about different products all working together. Right? The security is built into the infrastructure, not bolted on by new appliances. Okay? We have scalable, validated design guides for how to deploy virtualized data center, how to do BYOD, how to take identity information, right? How to do firewalling clusters. Everything is well defined. In fact, you can just copy and paste the commands into the devices and set that up. Right? Helps to reduce complexity, and we've got a very good track record. Right? We've been in IT, networking, and security for 30 years. Okay? We are now the largest network security vendor globally. Right? So we definitely have a strong reputation, and we're going to be here to support you. So to kind of summarize the key takeaways, we talked about this new security model. When you look at your IT spend or your next product purchase, think about where it fits in the environment. Think about what its job is. Is it just a before technology? Is it during? Is it after? Can that information that it has share with the rest of my environment? Think IPS and firewall, MDM with the infrastructure, right? NetFlow, etc. The second one, integration. I shared with you the announcement of Firepower, SourceFire services on the ASA platforms. And then finally, we talked about intelligence, global cloud intelligence and local intelligence. Right? So with that, thank you very much for your time. I'll be hanging around if anyone has any questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tim Snow. And now we actually have some coffee, free-flowing coffee and hot tea at the back and some snacks. So feel free to go ahead and help yourselves as I introduce our next speaker. But before that, let me just remind you, you only have until 5 o'clock p.m. to submit your entries to our social media raffle draw, because aside from that one MacBook Air that we are giving away, I think I've mentioned earlier this afternoon that we're also giving away another MacBook Air. So you don't want to miss on that. So don't forget to post. First of all, like. Here is the mechanics on the screen. Like our Facebook page. That's Cisco Connect Asia 2014. And he finally decided to join Cisco as sales manager for the Internet of Everything, or IoE solutions in Asia. Why don't we all introduce and welcome here on stage Mr. Jerry Lucas.
Thank you very much. So it's a little bit more time, a couple more sessions, and then we'll have the raffle. All right. So let me go ahead and get started. And I am going to be talking about utility as it relates to, there's a massive project going on that Cisco's doing with Meralco here in Philippines, and the parallel to this is utility infrastructure that Cisco has offered in other areas around the world. So I'll be going through that, but the products that I'm talking about could easily be applied to manufacturing environments, mobile workforce applications such as fleet vehicle tracking, and any number of different areas. The point is that these products that I'll be talking about are a product line that the typical IT user has not seen from Cisco. They're ruggedized, they're very, very high temperature solutions for outdoor deployments that are susceptible to rain, high extreme temperatures, low extreme temperatures, those sorts of products. So connected utilities, a brief overview about the market size, and this is looking at kind of global, but the global side is talking about a couple $2 trillion in potential business. Taking a look at the US market specifically, 300,000 miles of transmission lines, 3 million miles of distribution lines, 48,000 subscribers. A lot of this equipment is very, very old. So much like the US, where the equipment has been deployed in operation for years upon years, people just sweating assets where they have systems that break, power supplies that, transformers that blow up, We have the same issues here in Southeast Asia. Manila, obviously Manila or Philippines had the massive typhoon a year ago that wiped out a whole bunch of the electrical infrastructure. So these sorts of things need to be replaced and repaired. Systems need to be put in place that help modernize and help create solutions that are hopefully a little bit more survivable when it comes to these natural disasters. The current investment that people are looking at in the U.S. is upwards of 1.5 to 2 trillion U.S. dollars. So quite a lot of money that needs to be budgeted for these next generation solutions. So here's a view of a typical environment. Duke Energy in East Coast U.S., 7 million customers over 6 states, 104,000 square miles, 32,000 lines of transmission. You can see the details there. Some of the challenges they're looking at is this is being managed by baby boomers, and these are people that are my age, Tim's age, old guys. And us old guys, we're not going to be around for much longer. So the point is that these old guys have been working with old equipment years upon years upon years. What we need now is new blood, smart young people like yourselves that understand these newer technologies. This is what we're looking at Duke Energy, but we'll also see this same issue globally. So part of this is understanding how to deal with and work with the baby boomers and the Gen X people that are used to working with systems that operate on a hand phone. As Tim was just talking about, cyber and physical security attacks. You're talking about nuclear power plants. We see hackers that have already gone into power substations, and they're able to hack into those and essentially make a substation blow up. That substation blows up and it affects thousands upon thousands of users in their electrical requirements. And then the different compliance. NERC-CIP is a term that's used in the U.S., but a lot of what we see in the U.S. is also used in ASEAN countries, Philippines as an example. And then the government mandates. Government mandates are now starting to demand that systems be upgraded to the latest, greatest technologies. Some of the care-abouts as far as what we're looking at from management. And so again, these are kind of a high-level overview of what we saw at Duke Energy. And what I want to point out here is where Cisco has typically been more in line of the VP of Services and IT, you're looking at the carpet environment where Cisco routers, switches, security appliances have typically been deployed. Cisco is now moving outside of IT into what we call operations technologies. So where an IT person is going to care about a certain view of perspectives, enterprise IT, growth, influencing operations, they're going to have security compliance, but they also want to standardize on certain systems. Whereas the VP of operations, he's going to be more caring about compliance as it relates to the distribution and transmission lines. And how does Cisco product help him maintain those sort of capabilities? So we'll touch upon some of those things. Reduced downtime, fault isolation, and reduction of operational expenses. Then the CFO is going to want to make sure the CapEx and maintenance expenses are going to be maintained. And then finally, the president on the regulation side, the regulated entity, they're going to be looking at the various different non-technical losses. And we're talking about systems that blow up and that need to be repaired occasionally. Grid modernization, where you're moving away from proprietary networks. Any number of different companies I deal with, whether they're in the electrical industry, the oil and gas industry, many of these entities have 5, 6, 7 different networks that they're trying to operate. And by moving to an IP network, you're able to start converging these 6 or 7 different networks into a single IP-based network. And that also ties into what Tim was talking about, is that these IP-based networks need to have address space that is open to being able to handle these millions and millions, trillions of devices that are being deployed these days. So everything we're talking about today moving forward In fact, going back to 2010, we actually ran out of IPv4 address space. So we're encouraging our customers, what you're doing today, everything you're talking about and looking at from technology perspective needs to be looking at IPv6. So solution overview here. A couple different ways to look at this, just because the power distribution views are quite varied. A field area network, the business outcome we're looking at is cost reductions, new business model, reduce energy theft. So we see this a lot. I know in Indonesia, one of the big complaints they have is you look at these nighttime markets. A person typically just throws a cable over a wire down into a distribution panel, and boom, they're on the grid actually stealing energy from the power provider. So electric theft in a lot of the countries that we work in is a huge concern. If you don't see it, you don't know how to manage it, you don't know what's being lost. So by deploying some of these solutions, you're able to understand exactly where the power is going. You're also able to see where losses are coming from through these deployments. We're looking at zero-touch models. So the ability to deploy a solution, have it operational, and manage it remotely from a network operations center. If there is an outage, you've got the ability to send a truck to a specific location. That truck doesn't necessarily have to have a person climb a pole, because I've got wireless connectivity to my solution so I can manage it from my truck. Converged networks, as I mentioned earlier, 5, 6, 7 different networks, we're converging to an IP network, and rapid fault isolation. So one of the biggest things that we're looking at when it comes to substation automation is what's called teleprotection. Teleprotection is enabled when we are able to deploy something of a very, very fast MPLS network from substation to substation to substation. If there is an outage at substation A, the network is built in such a manner that as soon as that outage is seen at substation A, it is not sending a power surge down to substation B. You have this teleprotection mechanism that allows that communication to be interrupted, and that substation that failed is the only system that failed. Therefore, you're not seeing surges in the power line down the lines. This is attained through the bill of materials that would build this solution. The connected grid router 1240, the 1120 series, connected grid network management system, endpoint reference design, and Cisco advanced services that we've also worked with our partners. Now, a couple different things on these products. As I mentioned, these are new products to Cisco, and we're working with a number of partners that have the ability to work with Cisco to design interfaces that they custom built and put into these systems for advanced communications to meters, as example. These would be smart meters that are in our residence. Cost reduction. Again, by having a single network, I'm able to reduce my maintenance, I'm able to reduce my management. I also have better scalability in the overall operations. We also have solutions that think in terms of a maintenance vehicle. The maintenance vehicle is going to be driving all over the region, going from one area that needs maintenance to another. If I've got the idea that I have GPS, and I've got 3G, 4G communication in my maintenance vehicle, I can see where that vehicle is in relative location to where an outage might be, and dispatch a vehicle that is closer to a location for faster trouble resolution. And then B, because that vehicle has 3G, 4G connectivity, I can have faster communications to that vehicle so that vehicle can download and help with the troubleshooting of a specific outage. Then we're looking at workforce efficiency. Again, this ties to routers that have 3G, 4G connectivity, handle multiple wireless laptop capabilities. As Tim was mentioning, the bring your own device. A lot of people have different devices, iPhone, an Android type device, a MacBook, a laptop, all these different devices we're able to support with the various different communications technologies as well as the network security. And then finally, the legacy SCADA systems that a lot of these networks have, whether it's electrical utilities, oil, gas, a lot of these manufacturing plants, they all have what's called SCADA networks, and what we're seeing is the removal of the SCADA networks, the migration of these SCADA networks to IP networks. So today, we still have the ability to work with SCADA networks while we help customers transition from SCADA to IP. Cisco makes products that allow us to do this. They're small form factor. They are built in the same form factor as a SCADA-based system is, so it fits in the same system as these SCADA networks do. In terms of electrical distribution, we're NERC SIP, which is 61850. That's a specific American regulatory compliance that a lot of international companies adhere to. So Cisco is very, very good about working in these standards bodies. And then finally, the Cisco products, Connected Grid Router 2010, Connected Grid Switch. So when you look at different solutions, we have specific requirements. For instance, this 61850 requirement actually has a slight hardware differentiation from a standard ruggedized switch to a switch that you would have in a utility. So when you look at Cisco, we've actually built specific product for utilities that comply to this 61850 standard. And here's a kind of a high-level overview about what we would see deployed in a utility solution. On the lower middle is the home user. So here in Philippines, we have home users that are very, very far broad-based out in the suburbs, if you will. These people may or may not have electric meters on their houses. We have the ability now to work with companies that Cisco and Meralco are working with that can add intelligence to these meters. And because these meters are so far distributed from a headquarters area, they have radio frequency systems in them that can communicate to another meter next to it and build essentially a mesh network that would allow meter communications to go from one meter to another smart meter to another smart meter, finally to a distribution area that has a Cisco router that then takes that information to the control center. In more dense environments, in the middle there, the green, you've got, again, the similar meters. These meters are going to be more densely populated. The communication from meter to meter is going to allow us to get up to 5,000 smart meters per a single connected grid router. And then you look at a solution where downtown Manila, Makati out here, we have very, very tall buildings. So inside these tall buildings, you're less likely to have good communications because RF signals are blocked by the buildings themselves. We have solutions that can sit in the basement of the building and allow the same meters to communicate inside that building, and then once again go to a connected grid router out via MPLS network back to the distribution station. And then at the substation and the distribution station, I mentioned the different connections that we have there for teleprotection, sub-second failover, fast monitoring of the power grid as it's being used. We have physical security defined as cameras and badge access control, so that if a person who is not authorized to be in a specific area goes into that area, alarms can be sent, video feeds can be delivered to the data center security forces, those sorts of things. So we're able to lock down and secure these locations as well. So solution roadmap, looking at how we work with customers to get from where they are today to top-end best capabilities. First of all, we're talking about converged connectivity. Converged connectivity, if we look at it from where Cisco was 15, 18 years ago, Cisco was going from regular data communications to IP telephony. So that was convergence of voice and data. Today what we're looking at is a convergence of voice video data into other network connectivity that deals in factory automation, distribution automation, these sort of capabilities. So we're talking about the convergence in a different area. And then the distribution and the substation automation, voltage control, variance control. During any given point in time, the peaks and valleys generated by electrical utility or users such as you and me, it's going to be susceptible to temperature, weather conditions, and the ability for the utility to see those variances and forecast those and understand how power generation stations can better handle these peaks and valleys is what this automation allows the utility to realize. And then the workforce automation I mentioned earlier, the ability for people to be mobile, out and about in the field to fix problems as they occur. Analytics. The ability to collect data that we've never seen before from these distribution centers is going to allow us to understand how well a certain system is running. The collection of this telemetry information is something that you're starting to build a trend. You're able to see where a system might show higher temperature extremes in a distribution area. In a vehicle, it could be increase in temperature of a wheel, increased vibration or shock in certain areas. So this is all a lot of data that we're now generating because we're able to monitor different systems and being able to look at analytics from the data center as it's collected over time is going to be a huge savings on the preventive maintenance cycles of our customers. So grid blocks reference model. So when Cisco gets into a new technology, we want to study it and thoroughly understand what it is that we're doing. I know this is a very, very detailed graphic. We can provide this to anyone who wants it. We've got it here for the connected grid. We've got it for manufacturing, oil, gas, any number of different areas that are outside the typical IT area. Cisco has these very, very detailed, complex, validated design and infrastructure solutions. So this is specific to connected grid, but if you're in other areas, we have those detailed designs as well. The point is, this describes the power delivery chain. We're able to understand the architecture, detail. In the power distribution, there's basically 11 different tiers, and Cisco addresses where we have products or our partners have products where solutions are crafted and built to address how these are implemented. And then the framework, understanding how where you are today and where you want to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years down the road. So solution outcome, in the case of Duke Energy, a number of these entities here, by deploying this multi-service field area network, we're looking at recovering hundreds of millions of dollars in non-technical losses, enabling new business models, deliveries, and services. So by new business models, we're talking about the intelligence of a meter and myself having a smart application on my phone that says, I left the house and I left an aircon unit on. So I have the potential ability to log into my phone, turn off that aircon unit, and also monitor the usage of my electrical systems remotely. So that's a new service that your utility can make money off of, at the same time reducing your costs. And a number of these entities have already offered these sort of solutions to their customers. China Light and Power, there on the bottom, CLP in Hong Kong, we're doing a early POC where we've got about 5,000 smart meters deployed, working with a partner called Itron, and these connected grid routers, both that are mounted on poles as well as in the apartment condominium basements. So these are real deployments. BC Hydro in Canada, they have deployed about 1 million smart meters. So again, BC Hydro, I would liken it to some of the more remote areas we might have here in the Philippines, where you have meters that have RF communications that talk to one meter, another meter, and then finally to a connected grid router that sends the information back to the distribution area. So some of the infrastructure of the field area network, again on the upper left-hand side, previously we have the various different applications, the various different networks. So again, we're talking about network convergence where the existing proprietary networks bring in difficulty of overall management. You have to have expertise in each of these different fields. Some of these systems, as was mentioned earlier, may be 20, 30, 40 years old. So that 30, 40-year-old system, a guy like myself retires, all of a sudden you don't really know how to operate that system. We're saying move that to a converged IP-based system. Now you're able to manage that from a single user interface, train that employee, and he can manage all those different systems together. Now looking at the hardware there on the left-hand side, the mentioned earlier, the connected grid router. This is a brand new solution. It's been shipping now for about 3 years. So what we have in this router is different interfaces that we actually carve out a subset of the Cisco iOS operating system. We call it IOX. This operating system now is something where we have exposed APIs that our partners can write applications to. With the partner writing applications to it or developing a hardware network interface module for that router, we're able to do a lot of analysis of data literally at the edge. So where we're producing massive amounts of data in the utility, in an airplane, in a manufacturing environment, we can say, I don't necessarily need to send these millions and millions and billions of bytes of data back to the data center. If I've got intelligence at the edge, that I've developed an app that can take certain action on systems, dump the certain applications that don't mean anything, only send back the important data, I'm saving myself time and money. I'm also saving myself data center cycles, and I'm also giving myself some visibility into what makes sense. So this is new over the last year and a half from Cisco, and it's something that Merelco is working with Cisco and some of our other partners to build interfaces for. Range extenders. Range extenders are going to be used for those very, very remote areas that need to have longer RF communications. Then we bring in software, and this would include partners that Cisco works with, again using Cisco reference designs. Now the reference design is critical to understand. What this means to the customer is where you would typically have to have a very, very technical CCIE type person to do a lot of command line interface configurations of routers and switches. These Cisco validated designs that we've deployed have, lack of a better term, a recipe command line interface that a person can cut and paste and put it into a router and know that Cisco fully supports this configuration. So these are very, very important to you, the customer, as well as the partners, that you don't need to hire a very, very expensive CCIE. You have the confidence knowing that Cisco has tested everything that we have in this validated reference design, deploy it, and call Cisco TAC if you have issues. So that's cost savings. It's a proven design that the partner supports and Cisco supports. And then the field area network system, head end in the box, various different capabilities and products that wrap up the overall build of a connected grid network. So the outcome here in this specific scenario, the field area network, is, as I mentioned, you've got the workforce automation. So the fleet vehicles can be dispatched at a more routine or regular basis. If you've got a fleet vehicle that's already out there deployed on the road and there's an outage, you understand where the closest vehicle to that outage is and can deploy that person faster to that location. So this is reduced operation time, reduced downtime in certain areas where outages have been occurred, and the savings, this specific customer, RWE, Southern Company in Southeast US, that was a $9 million cost savings for them. Now looking at mobile field workforce, what are the products that make this system up? It's detection, so it's video surveillance capabilities to understand if there is an intruder in an area. You can send out alarms, you can send vehicles, safety, security people to monitor these systems. In the vehicles themselves, it's a Cisco 819 router, 3G, 4G connectivity, plus the GPS capability to understand where the vehicle is within the environment. Unified security operations. So again, you tie all this together by having a solution that has a video camera, physical surveillance, and back at the operations center, all this is collected neatly by operations command that have a single user interface that can review this. And then of course, being able to respond faster to these sort of situations. Another looking at power distribution. So distribution automation, Duke Energy. We're looking at fault isolation services and restoration. So a system goes down, what they've been able to see is anywhere from a 2% all the way up to 43% improvement. 28% improvements, and then up to 40% improvements in these different areas. So these are significant cost savings, customer satisfaction capabilities that Duke Energy was able to realize by deploying the solutions that can control voltage regulation. Again, looking at peaks and valleys, smooth out those peaks and valleys so the customer has a more even experience as they're using the energy. The distribution automation also saw lower total cost of ownership, the disaster recovery. So in the US they have hurricanes, here we have the cyclones. Either way, it's a natural disaster, and being able to understand how to manage and control these sort of things is also visibility that Duke Energy was able to realize from deploying a solution like this. So solution architecture for this. Slightly different products. Still we have the Cisco 819 series. But we also have smaller boxes, 809 and 829 products tied to the connected grid network management system. So the outcome of this, multi-service network, cross-company applications, improved security and visibility, prolonged lifecycle management, and this substation automation, again talking about lower cost of ownership, physical, cybersecurity, those sorts of things, being able to prevent people from breaking into systems and causing damage. So again, this is not something that's just deployed in the US. Osgrid in Australia has been a big user of this. And the structure of these substation automation. So earlier I'd mentioned Cisco has a different line of switches. These are the example of those switches. The CGS, connected grid switch. This conforms to that 61850 spec that is going to be specific to power grid type deployments. The connected grid router, and then the ASR 903. The ASR 903 is a router that we deploy at the edge to help us build the MPLS network for this very, very fast teleprotection failover capability. And then finally tying all this together with Cisco Network Management Solution, CG, NMS, Connected Grid Network Management Solution, which is a subset of the Cisco Prime offering. So finally, quick here, I'm trying to recover some time for everyone here, and we've also got another gentleman following me. IoT, Internet of Things, Internet of Everything. It's about bringing people, process, and data together to form actions on all the data that we're collecting. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Now, for saying something about the case study of one of the top companies here in the Philippines. Now, if he's from the sales side, we also have our special guest here from the customer side. He is a two-time awardee of the CIO, or Chief Information Officers 100 Awards, and the Top 5 Business Intelligence Awardee. The first ever in the history of the CIO 100 Awards to be won by a Filipino company. From Manila Water, the ICT executive for NCR, let's call in here Mr. Mauch Franco.
Okay, good afternoon. Are we okay? Okay, good. Okay, so this is not a Cisco presentation. I'm here to share with you one of our experiences in implementing one of the key technologies that we're using in Manila Water. And essentially, this is part of the IT trends that we are adapting to, and this is on mobility. Okay, so let me first start with how this all started and what were the business requirements of Manila Water. Okay, so Manila Water has been growing consistently. We've actually expanded into different areas already, both locally and internationally. We have about 4 subsidiaries already in the Philippines. This is Clark, Boracay, Laguna, and the most recent, which is Cebu. And internationally, we also have subsidiaries in Vietnam. And because of this, it has been a challenge for our key executives and key personnel to make themselves available anytime, because we have oversight into these subsidiaries and we have to make sure that they are performing well and are performing according to standards. Okay, so in terms of being able to communicate across the different subsidiaries and personnel that have scattered across the country and across the globe, we have recognized that meetings, if not face-to-face, are not as effective. And so we recognize the fact that having a face-to-face meeting will always be better than the common audio conferencing. Okay, as you see the body language, you are able to appreciate the better way of people explaining how they are going about their day-to-day stuff. And so there can be no misinterpretation of ideas and instructions. Okay, and so to maximize the executive time of our business leaders and key employees, then we thought it relevant to provide a facility to provide a near face-to-face meeting experience. Okay, and this should be available anytime, and it should be accessible in almost every place of work. And when we say place of work, it doesn't mean the office. It can be anywhere, actually. And so we looked on having a video conference solution. And I know video conference may be trivial to some, but I will point out differences in the solution that we have selected for our business collaboration. And so we did a SWOT analysis of the concept of video conference in this modern age, and we see the strengths, especially in terms of being able to see video images together with presentations, being able to bring in a lot of participants into certain meetings from practically any device that they can use. So today, we do not just use PCs as tools of work. In fact, in our organization, we're already deploying smartphones as a minimum. And this is all in support of collaboration efforts that is required by the organization. And this solution also gives way to a lot of potential savings. And so this is a sample. We've done some sampling of certain business units who do quite a bit of travel. And we've done the business cases with them, and we realized that there can be potential saves in doing a video conferencing collaboration solution. And so there were options that we were looking at actually when we say video conferencing. One is, well, there are free video conferencing solutions, right? So we have the likes of Skype or Yahoo or Facebook. However, though this is free, there is still some questions on security, quality, SLAs, and functionalities that we intend to have under the corporate environment. And I'm sure most of you recognize this as important considerations. There can also be hosted video conferencing. We have we have also WebEx, Citrix, there's also Adobe, okay? However, in terms of quality also, we recognize that there is no guaranteed quality because it's just an open internet connection that's being used. The third option that we've looked at is unified communications platforms. No? So there were various leading brands that we have considered. And in terms of capabilities, then they can actually offer the capabilities of both option 1 and 2, while still providing high quality video and collaboration qualities. And there is technology to maintain the SLAs. They can also become more flexible in terms of deployments. Okay, and so we did get into option 3, and when we intended to go into unified communications, we were also looking at doing corporate instant messaging, or IM, which has become pervasive in the not only on the personal tools but also in the corporate environment, and the continued use of the audio conference bridge. And so what was our deployment plan? So essentially, we categorized it in 2 phases. The first one being a deployment into our business areas or our business offices. The main equipment being located at head office and also our subsidiaries. And if you see here, one of the key strengths is its capability to connect remote users, okay, or outside the office, and to connect also to our sister companies, no, from the Ayala group of companies. And so with the initial phase, the intent was to make it pervasive, and once there is better appreciation, then we can actually move into the next phase, which is to have the UC equipment also installed in other areas. Okay, so short to say, the business case was approved by our executive management, and in April, this was approved in concept, but we had to have a demo for better appreciation. No? So just to make sure that we are not just talking about concepts, then there was a requirement to to have it on a demo mode and be able to appreciate the solutions. And so we did. In June, solutions from leading solutions providers were put on demo, and after that, Mancom finally approved for the project to undergo the bidding process. And in August, the video conferencing project was awarded using the Cisco Unified Communication Solution, okay, which was subjected to a lot of technical evaluation, and we saw fit that the Cisco solution was the best solution for Manila Water. And so we started rolling out in February. We had to prepare the environment to make sure that everything is properly laid out, that the infrastructure is adequately capacitized to support it. By the way, we already operate on a full wireless environment, which is also part of the challenge because we were talking about supporting video and data over a wireless network. So the SLA performance should still be optimal. Okay, so with the solution that was selected, as you can see here, what devices can now be used as collaboration endpoints? So what comes different from the old concept of video conferencing is that we can now use tablets, both iOS and Android versions. We can use smartphones, also supported under iOS and Android versions. And of course, our Windows PCs, but not only Windows, it also supports MacBooks. So for those who are Apple lovers, you will be glad to know that Cisco UC solution also supports your well-loved Apple devices. For our main conference room, so we have installed a high-end or high-resolution video conferencing equipment, which, well, aside from being able to join in participants from across the organization, it can also connect again with Ayala Group of Companies conference systems, which use the standards-based H.323 protocols. Okay, and then what happens to your existing, if you have a Cisco PBX, what happens to your Cisco PBX if ever you upgrade to the UC platform? We were actually able to still use Cisco phones, no? So the Cisco phones continue to be used. We also have landlines, which can be an endpoint of collaboration, and as well as the mobile phone cellular line. Okay, which means that this is a full integration with our PBX, and it is used as the gateway. No? In essence, for example, if you have an iPhone, by installing the required software, which is Jabber, okay, you actually convert your iPhone into a Cisco phone. So it will have all the features of calling done through a Cisco phone, while at the same time being able to bring in video or even join a conference call. Isn't that cool? Yeah, that's one of the first comments I get from our executive management, especially those that were located in Vietnam. No? By just using an iPhone with the Jabber software, you know, he can be anywhere, maybe out in a remote office where there is still a decent internet connection, but still able to join a conference call. So no PCs, no telephones needed, just his mobile device. And I think this is one of the key game changers in terms of doing video conferencing. And how do the devices connect? So those that are located externally can simply use internet. No? So just an open internet connection. And for those that choose to join the conference call via trunk line access, or the conference bridge as we call it, then we have made available a PLDT and Globe trunk line for them to connect to in case, in case the participants are in a location where they cannot have internet access. I don't know where that is, but just in case that is the case, then they can still join via landline or cellular line. Okay, so what if you're inside our office, our head office, our facilities where there is corporate Wi-Fi available? So all they need to do is just connect to the corporate Wi-Fi, and they will be able to use voice over IP. They can still continue, as I mentioned, their Cisco phones and just dial local access, okay, and be able to join any conference call. So in terms of deployment approach, I would just like to qualify that we have not deployed this for all employees. No? This is where the prudence part comes in, because we cannot also afford to provide licenses for all users. Okay, maybe in due time we will be able to do that, but in the meantime we have focused deploying the Cisco UC solution for those that have that are mobile users or users that do a lot of conference call on a regular basis. Okay, so this is intended, for example, for board meetings or meetings where consistency of audio and video quality is of the essence. Okay, so we have started small in order to manage the investment in this. Then as we slowly but surely roll this out to our users and becomes pervasive and we are getting the returns, then we continue to expand. Okay. Thing is, for audio calls, then they can also be made. No? So if there are users now requesting for Cisco phones, we don't deploy Cisco phones anymore. Okay. It is actually cheaper, and we made the computations on this. It is cheaper for us to deploy a new mobile line with internet connection and put the Jabber software versus deploying a Cisco phone. Now, another cool stuff, right? So, better to provide your users with a more mobile device compared to simply deploying the desk phone. Okay? And again, it has become pervasive for our subsidiaries because a lot of decisions still come from head office. And so our key personnel in our subsidiaries, regardless of where they are, then they can continue to collaborate with head office personnel, even if they are located not in Metro Manila. And the beauty of this is that we can also have external participants, no? So not just Manila Water employees can be part of the conference call. We can also bring in external participants to be part of the conference call. Okay, so that's essentially how we've gone over the execution of our business collaboration tool. Are there any questions?
How's your experience using Jabber limited internet? Is
Okay, so the question is, what was our experience with using Jabber on limited internet? Let me describe to you how limited is. You turn on your 3G, you still get good quality. You don't even have to use LTE. So I was actually able to join a conference call just using 3G. And I used video. And it's because, I guess, I'm using either my iPad or iPhone, and it's a small footprint of video, because it's a small size, right? So there is management of the Jabber software, and it can control that. The audio is no question. It's always clear. And again, the beauty of this is that it's a corporate solution, so in case there are issues with bandwidth, the audio is the first to get out. If you are sharing a presentation, the presentation comes next, and last is the audio. So at the minimum, you will get audio conference. But so far in our experience, by just using 3G connection of our devices, the quality was good. And I also urge you to try it. I think Jay here, our UC expert, should be able to help out in being able to have its customers try out the new collaboration solution. Take note, this was acquired also. It was mentioned earlier that Jabber software was acquired. So it's essentially a mature product. So it did not come from scratch. So, and when we did it, when we tried the solution, it was working very well for us. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Okay, so anyway, yes, please.
You mentioned there that there's collaboration.
Oops, sorry.
Using Microsoft Office.
Yes.
So meaning when you're doing the board meeting, you can share documents and then update it depending on the inputs on from the head office to the.
Okay. Yeah. For the Jabber software, there is desktop sharing for participants that are part of the conference, no? So when we talk about document collaboration, then we use another solution for that, no? But the integration here is actually we're on Office 365, so there is also an integration with Outlook, so you can actually create invites and include participants using your Office software, and you can see present status and all of those. Yeah, but document collaboration is different. This is largely desktop sharing that we use. So it's presentation sharing or sharing your desktop screen. Okay, another question? Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Franco, for sharing with us your company's collaboration tools. And now, if for everybody of you, mobility still seems like a concept, I'd like to bring in one of our partners here on stage to elaborate turning mobility, of course, into reality. He is, of course, the regional lead for desktop virtualization across APAC from Dimension Data. Let us all welcome Mr. David Nichols.
Thank you for that. You've seen a lot of content today around the technology behind things. A fantastic example from Manila Water there of mobility and collaboration working together. So what I'd like to share with you today is just how Dimension Data has worked with Cisco products, Cisco customers, to deliver some true innovation, and how these technologies that you've seen and heard about today can be applied to help you drive your business forward. So just as I guess a starting point, we're all aware of the acceleration of mobility out there. Something just to make you think. 4 people are born every second. 40 mobile devices are sold every second. So that means in the time it took me to say that, there's about 150, 200 devices just been sold. Southeast Asia sold 18 million units in Q1 of 2014. That was up 25% on Q1 in 2013. What it shows us basically is that mobility's here, people are embracing it, and it's not if you're going to do it, it's how can you leverage it to drive your business towards the things that you want to achieve. So it's about growth, productivity, and driving the business benefit to your stakeholders, your employees, your shareholders, and your clients. So where do the opportunities come from? We see them falling into the 2 key areas, and we'll give some example of these as we go through. The first one is in business development. So driving your business towards greater outcomes, improve revenues, reduce margins. Mobility gives us a platform for product innovation, a new way to engage with clients. If a customer of yours can access your information immediately in a fantastic app on their phone, then that engagement experience is dramatically improved, and research shows us that that client is more likely to stay with you. And of course in operations as well. So efficiency within the operation. An engaged workforce is typically a happy workforce. That means you get to retain your best people. They don't go to your competitors and they help drive your business. Technologies around mobility, so desktop virtualization, enabling smart workplaces that we've heard about before can help drive down the costs of real estate, increase your margins and reduce your costs, all contributing to driving efficiency of operation within your business. So a couple of examples of where we've helped our clients with this. The first 2 are from the insurance industry. The Everest Group, which are a American analysts organisation, tell us that insurers are jumping on the mobility bandwagon, and it's not because they've decided to, it's because they need to keep up with their competition. So a couple of examples from Australia. The first one with AIG, and this is one of my favourite examples that we use. It's using telemetry to drive a better customer experience and increasing the customer engagement for AIG. The way it works is in the car insurer, there's a small device sits in the car, and it records and transmits information about how a driver is driving. So if he's speeding up, slowing down, driving erratically, driving slowly, driving sensibly. The insurer can then make decisions based on that information about the price of premiums, make rewards for good driving, and reduce the cost to that driver. It's a win-win situation. The driver is encouraged to drive more sensibly, more safely. There's less accidents, so there's less payout, and the driver gets a reduced payment. It's a win-win all round. The second example is with Amy. They're a home contents and other insurer and provider in Australia. In my early days of my sales career, I worked in insurance in the UK for a company called Ensley, and our claims department, this is about 15 years ago now, our claims department had boxes and boxes of what they called proof of loss. So when you were making a claim, you had to prove that you owned the item in the first place. So sending the box for your TV or the receipt for your phone that you'd lost. Well, that was kind of before mobile phones. That process is not particularly efficient. It takes 2 or 3 days, and then you've got all this kit lying around in the office. It wasn't a particularly pleasant place to work and on that side. Nowadays, with the AMI application, you take a picture of your proof, upload it to the portal, and the decision can be made there and then on your claim. It's processed 2 or 3 days quicker than it would have been previously. So there's a couple of examples of the external benefits that enabling mobility can bring. But mobility means different things to different people. I was with a client yesterday, and for them it wasn't about a phone or an iPad or a tablet particularly. Mobility for those guys was really about when you get the floods in Manila, and it rains like it did yesterday afternoon for an hour. I don't know what you guys do when in 2 days, that was crazy. They don't want to have to bring their employees to work, but they don't want to stop the business. So mobility for them is in that situation, enabling their employees to be productive, but also making sure they stay out of harm's way. So a couple of examples of places where we've delivered this kind of solution. Blue Care in Australia are an elderly care organisation. So they have nurses and staff who go and visit the elderly in their home. And then on the back of those, they write reports about what happens with in the meeting, how the patient is, and so on. And they'll do 5 or 6 visits a day for up to an hour and a half at a time. They then go back to the office, they write the reports up, and it can take 3 hours to write the reports. So previously, this was all local. They could only do this in the office. That meant that they were either doing it at the end of the day or the start of the day, so starting at 6 in the morning or finishing at 9 at night potentially. We've actually introduced a solution for them now, so they can do this on the go. So finishing a visit with a patient, they can fill out the details in the coffee shop before the next meeting, they can fill them out in the car waiting outside someone's house, or even at home, just improving quality of life and their productivity as well. In New Zealand, we operate the first New Zealand in-country desktop as a service cloud. It's all based on UCS servers. We have introduced about a year ago. There's now 5 government departments on this. We provide virtual desktops, physical desktop support, application packaging, and currency as a service to any device anywhere in New Zealand for these agencies. The cool thing about it is actually just charged on a utility model. So there was 0 upfront investment for the government. They simply pay for what they use on a month-by-month basis. If there are 1,000 users on this month, and next month there's 800, then the pricing changes accordingly. It's provided those guys with an enabled mobile strategy. Previously, every department did a different thing. They can now standardise across all the departments. It's provided them with full BCP, so in the event of an outage, the Christchurch earthquakes is a great example, they can still perform the government functions they need to perform. And it's driven down the cost of ownership of all their infrastructure. So how do we arrive at these solutions with our clients, and kind of what's the approach that we take? There we go. We look at the mobility ecosystem as made up of 4 areas. The first one is the infrastructure, then the services you're actually providing to users, the devices they're using, and then the users themselves. So it's how the end user interacts with the application, on what device are they doing it, and then what platform do we give in order to operate and deliver the services that people need in a timely manner, in a secure manner, and an efficient manner. Taking the first one, user profiling is probably the most important piece that we've come across. It defines the device strategy of the organisation, it defines the application strategy, and then on the back of that you can make decisions about the infrastructure that you're using to support it. So what do we mean by user profiling? Along the top you can see the different types of user. I would be classed as a mobile worker. I spend 3 weeks a month out of the office probably. I use my laptop, my phone, my tablet. I need access to my presentations where I am, and I'll be working kind of at night or outside of the office. So I'm a mobile worker. Similarly, we've got people who work in our support areas who would be classed as a task worker. They perform the same functions or similar functions on a daily basis. Typically, they'd have fixed hours. They'd have fixed applications they're using. They don't really need to customize anything. And they don't generally need remote access to work from home or anything like that. Those two groups, if you understand the differences between them within your organization, it enables you to make some key decisions about how you're going to provide applications to users. The goal being to provide end users with the applications they need to provide users with the applications they need to do their jobs seamlessly across the device that they choose to do it on or that you choose to give them to do it on. That's a pretty big ask because, as we understand, most people have a significant number of applications within their organisation. We've seen with upwards of kind of 400. So we kind of put them into three buckets. The first bucket is what we call the fast bucket. Excuse me. And this talks about desktop and application virtualization. It's about legacy app compatibility, solving a specific problem at a specific time. We've got use cases with clients across the region where we're actually using desktop virtualization in place of a desktop refresh, simply because the cost is less. For a task worker, it makes perfect sense. And desktop virtualization isn't new. Everybody will have heard of it. But what has changed in the last 18 months to 2 years is the maturity of the technology. And that's not necessarily the broker software itself, it's the underlying and the pieces that fit around it. So the server power, the compute, the storage, the networking piece, to enable it to be a viable solution at the right price point. And we've got some studies that we've done that prove that. The second way is a tactical way, and this is about just streamlining your business operation. So we work with a manufacturing client in Singapore. They had an approval process for changes to designs in their manufacturing that needed to go to a senior manager who was regularly travelling, and he needed to be in the office in order to access the approval process. So rather than rewrite that entire process or rewrite the entire application, we simply mobilised the process of approving or rejecting the changes. What it means is he can approve them instantly if he needs to on the go, and if there's a problem, then it's a phone call and he knows that they're available. They've taken anything up to 5 days out of the time taken to approve changes in the design process. It also applies to things like approving leave, approving expenses, anything that kind of takes time, but you could do on the fly as you're getting on a plane or as you're waiting for your next meeting. And the final way is the strategic way. And this is about writing native mobile applications. And we understand that with 200, 150, however many applications in your organisation, you're probably not going to rewrite all of them for a mobile device, Android, iOS, Windows maybe. But maybe you're going to rewrite one or two of your core applications. So the example of the insurers at the start of the presentation is one of those. So by making decisions about which applications fit where and where they are within your strategy, we can actually help you then to determine the infrastructure that you're going to use to deliver this. Now for us, the next-gen data center is a term that's thrown about quite a lot. But what it really means for us is creating a holistic strategy for how you're going to deliver your services to enable your end users and your organizations to perform the functions they need to, and also to grow your business in the direction that you want to. The way it works is establishing a strategy that enables you to choose the way that you're going to procure and then manage your infrastructure. So whether that's your traditional CapEx model for specific use cases, maybe your core banking application, you want on-premise and you want to manage it yourself because it's so important to your business. And then, so you'll buy the hardware and you'll buy the services to implement it, and that'll sit there. The next piece, your development framework. perhaps you don't need to own the service for that, because that's a cycle that goes up and down in the amount of resource you actually need. So the next-gen data center model gives you the option to leverage the cloud on a utility basis for those kinds of services. We work with a bank in Australia for their development network. We reduced the time it took for them to set it up from 7 days down to about 25 minutes through leveraging our cloud services. And the final way is, perhaps you don't want to manage specific pieces of your infrastructure. So would you prefer an on-premise managed environment charged on a utility basis or an OpEx basis? So it's about making the decisions that are right for you around the specific use cases of your organization. And we believe we're pretty unique in the market when it comes to this. We've got a very, very strong knowledge of cloud. We have 14 of our own around the world, soon to be 16, I think. Working very closely with the guys at Cisco on those. And of course, our background is networking. It's dimension data. We've been doing it for 25 years. So the two together give us a pretty strong value proposition around delivering the infrastructure and helping you guys to understand how it can benefit your businesses. So the end user computing journey with dimension data. I touched on the assessment services that we go through around user profiling previously. We've done a lot of work with our clients. I think we've delivered around about 100 of the user assessment in the last 12 months. The journey really is about working with an organization, so it's not just solving a specific problem now, but it's understanding what are your business requirements in a tactical way immediately, how are we going to understand how your users fit into it, the best infrastructure that goes there, and then how it aligns with your strategic direction, both through an IT perspective and from a business perspective. So understanding where you are now and what the business is trying to achieve, where you'd like to be in 3 to 5 years, and then helping build a roadmap with specific tactical projects alongside that to enable you to get to where you need to be on a platform that's flexible and scalable to deliver that. Phase 2 is about recommendations. It's purely based on what we understand about your business, the way it works, and what you're trying to achieve. We can develop a maturity rating around mobility, around your end user computing environment, around data center or networking, whatever the engagement is around. The idea being that based on that, we can make the right recommendations around technology that meet your specific requirements now. On the back of that, we can then build the business cases, including reference cases, ROIs, TCOs, everything that goes into helping get proposals past the guys that hold the purse strings in your organization. The full roadmap around now to the future, and then obviously dealing with presenting it internally, managing the stakeholders, technical, executive, and any others within the organization as well. And then the final piece is our execution phase. So I've talked a little bit about the data center piece, the different models apply to all our consumption models. So from a design perspective, we have certified the certified teams, the most certifications outside of most of our partner vendors who are best of breed outside of those environments. We've got a significant reference client base, which means that we've done this 100 times before and can deliver it to your requirements. And the final piece is around the management. So we've got a significant ITO business. What that means is not necessarily a full outsourcing, but when we're engaging in a transformational project with our clients, what we quite often find is there will be a skills gap between the skills that you have now and the skills that we needed moving forward to manage the MDM solution or mobile application management. In those cases, we've actually been able to place a warm body into the IT team to deal with a skills gap for that interim period. And of course, there's the full ITO capability as well. So the EUC, or the End User Computing Development Model, basically gives you a full roadmap towards an engaged and innovative mobile operation. It looks at the tactical requirements right now, so that might be an MDM solution. It looks at the strategic objective, which might be to move your core application into a fully mobile environment to stay engaged with your clients, and then examines the operational requirements that you need in the middle to deliver that. A short case study with an airline in Southern Asia. This began as just a licensing deployment, effectively. We were engaged to deploy some MDM licenses. We very quickly realized that within this organization, the business was quite fragmented around mobility. People were doing their own things. Some departments had a policy of bring your own. Some had no, you can't bring your own. Some were using different sorts of MDM technology. Very difficult to implement successfully with any kind of real business benefits, a new solution. So the way we worked was we reviewed the existing infrastructure, reviewed the current strategies and the frameworks they got in place, presented this back, in the process understood that they were actually building a next-gen desktop strategy, which is all about refreshing desktops and desktop virtualization. And we were able to deliver a 3-year strategic roadmap, which covered around about 30 projects and activities, everything from the infrastructure through to the networking, desktop virtualization, mobility, and all the pieces that fit around that to enable them to get to actually where they wanted to be. The IT organization was then able to present that back to their leadership and get support to start on this journey. One of the key findings as part of the business assessment was speaking to the pilots at the airline. I'm not sure if anybody knows this, but they've got in a cockpit you have anywhere between 10 and 20 manuals, which is everything from how the media system works through to how the engine works. And these are required as it's a industry standard, because if something goes wrong, the pilot needs to be able to read up on it and get the answers to how it all works. They weigh about 20 kilos in this case. So what we were able to do is take all those manuals and put them in a virtualized form and onto a tablet. So we took 20 kilos per plane off every plane, replaced it with a less than a 1 kilo tablet, reducing their fuel costs significantly. Because if you can, the airline's obviously pretty hot on how much fuel costs. If you can reduce 20 kilos on every flight, then the net gain is pretty significant. The other thing is about keeping those up to date. So previously it was a case of ripping a page out, putting another page back in, and hoping that it stayed there, or hoping that that process had gone through. Now, every time the plane lands, the pilot goes and docks his tablet, gets the latest version of everything downloaded to his system. So cost savings and efficiency savings, and a guarantees of accuracy of the information that people need. And then just to finish, 3 more examples where we've helped organisations deliver innovation through our mobility solutions across the region. The first is a retailer from New Zealand. They're a small manufacturing and clothing retailer. They wanted to grow across the region. And this is an example of how we've used our hybrid cloud to help them do this. As they grow, they leverage our cloud in the countries they're in to deliver their services to their end users. Now, whether that's the end user productivity services like email or the office applications, or whether it's the back-end resources to power the systems and the interaction with their manufacturers locally, they leverage those. The second is an example of a standard CapEx-based model. This is a utility company in Hong Kong, and it links in quite nicely with the Manila Water and the smart meters that the Cisco guys were talking about before. What we've built is a platform to enable the smart metering of homes in Hong Kong. So when consumers log into their portal, they get a real-time accurate representation of their usage of electricity, as opposed to the meters being read or not read and it being an estimate. It means the organisation can be efficient and understand exactly what's being consumed, when it's being consumed, and they can give a great customer service because the billing should always be accurate. And the final one is around an outsourcing operation. So a large conglomerate in Asia was pulling all their services back into the data center, a single data center or dual data centers in Hong Kong. What we were able to do is help them to build the strategy to do that whilst enabling their end users to stay productive. The end user services are all powered out of the 2 data centers. Everything again from email to collaboration and all the things that they need to use to do their jobs. And as I say, we work with them to build the strategy for the next 5 years to do that, and we meet on an annual basis to help them build that out further. The platform's built from a small base, and it's been scaled up over the last 2 years, and will continue to scale over the next period of time as well. So it's just 3 examples of the 3 different ways of delivering services that we see across our client base. One through just a standard traditional CapEx model, a traditional outsourcing model, if you like, and then the third one, leveraging the cloud to deliver mobility services to end users as well. That's all I had, guys. Thanks very much for your attention. It'll be about at the stand if anybody's got any questions later on as well. Or if you have any questions now. No? Cool. The Dimension Data stand's out there, and I'll be around for a while if anybody wants to come and ask anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. And now we will take a 15-minute break as we wait for the other participants to join us back from the breakout rooms. So just relax. And this is also your chance, 15 more minutes to submit your raffle entries with the hashtag Cisco Connect. And we are so very excited to find out who the lucky winners are. So go ahead, post them now on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, these are the mechanics flashed on the screen.